What's up booktube? Welcome back. My name is Laura if you're new here, and today we're talking about some fantasy books with a school setting. So it is officially September. I'm in my peak fall cozy vibe right now. I've got this really cute oversized knit sweater on. I have my fuzzy socks that you can't see. I have a cup of tea. It is actually kind of chilly outside and I love it. But with fall and September comes back to school. Now I am not a student anymore. Thank God I did not like school at all. But I thought it would be a fun time to recommend some fantasy books that have a school setting to them. I went through my Goodreads read list and apparently I haven't actually read that many of them. My goal was high fantasy, magic school settings, but there were not very many. So there's a couple of high fantasy books, but most of them are urban fantasy. But either way, they are still a really fun school setting, and I thought it would be a perfect time for it. So let's get right into it. And we are going to start with a classic that I'm sure literally everybody has read by now. This was a very, very popular series when I was a teenager and I adored it, but that is the House of Night series by Kristin Cast and PC Cast. This is a vampire series that I went absolutely nuts for during my Twilight years, which, let's be real, I'm still in my Twilight years. It never ended. But I love me a good vampire novel. But this series takes place in a world that is pretty much the same as our own, but in this one, vampires are just a known fact. Everyone knows that vampires exist. I think how it works is that when you turn 16, you if this certain mark appears on you, then you have to go to the House of Night because you are going to be changing into a vampire. So our main character, obviously, she gets the mark and off she goes to the House of Night to start her new life as a vampire. And a whole bunch of things ensue from there. This is a pretty long series. There's I'm not even sure, 12 books maybe? I'm not sure, but there's quite a few books. So it's a very long series. I loved it when I was younger. It's very cringy, early 2000s YA. But that style of YA has a certain charm to it that I kind of really miss. So I'm kind of thinking about finishing this series, maybe for a reading vlog at some point, because I got to book 9. And I used to love them. They are not good. Let me just preface this. These are cheesy, over-the-top, dramatic, just very ridiculous novels, but they're fun. They're so much fun. If you haven't read this series, if you want to read it, don't go into it with a critical mind. Don't expect to read some profound, beautiful prose. It is cheesy and kind of terrible, but the good kind of bad, you know? It's just a good time. It's entertaining. So I would definitely recommend this series for a school setting fantasy novel if you have somehow not read this series already. Next up is another series that I'm sure nobody is going to be surprised that I'm recommending because I talk about these books literally constantly. That would be the Wayward Children series by McGuire. We know that I love this series. It is my favorite series of all time. If I had to pick one favorite book, it would be In an Absent Dream. So I just truly adore this series. But it is a series of novellas. They're very short, and it's all centering around Eleanor West's School for Wayward Children, which is a school for children who have found a door that took them to some portal universe where they found a home. They felt like they belonged there, and then for some reason they were forced to come back to our world, the real world, and now they just don't know how to cope with the reality of our world and how boring it is without magic and everything that they grew to love and call home. So these children end up kind of acting out and they just don't know how to live. So they go to the school to either learn how to live in this world or wait for their doors to open again and hopefully take them home. And they're also trying to map out all the different worlds and see if any of them connect. So it's a really fun world. So far there are 6 books in the series. Some of them take place in the school. Some of them are backstories of certain characters where you're actually exploring their world. So it is just such a fun, delightful series. There's a murder mystery in the first book as well. It's also very diverse. We have asexual characters, trans characters. This is just a lovely little world and I truly adore it. We all know this. I never ever shut up about these books. So just read them, okay? Next up is one of my high fantasy recommendations. I don't think I've ever talked about it on this channel before, but it was a really fun book, and that is The Black Mage by Rachel E. Carter. Or the series is called The Black Mage. The first book is called First Year. This one is set in a world where when you turn 15, I think it is, you have to make a choice, and you can either go into some kind of trade or you can go for a 1-year trial run at the like prestigious school to find out if you have what it takes to become either a knight, a soldier, or a mage. Our main character Raya, she desperately wants to be a mage so badly, so she goes, and for some reason people just do not like her there. I forget why. I think just because like class issues. I think she's not as wealthy as the rest of the students there, or like whatever the case may be. And she's also like not that good at magic, but she is determined. She is so desperate to prove herself, and nobody believes that she can do it, and they keep like actively trying to make her fail. But she just keeps persevering, and she's almost always in last place, but she steadily learns and grows. And I have a feeling that by the end of the series she'll become like a fantastic mage. But I haven't finished the series either. I don't know why, because like I've just read the first book so far, but it was fantastic. Like it was so much fun, and for some reason I just never carried on with it, so I need to do that. But I loved this book because most times in YA novels especially, you know, there's that whole like lucky novice trope where they've never done anything like this before, but for some reason they're just really good at it. They're the chosen one. This is not like that. In this book, our main character sucks. She is so bad at magic, but she just keeps trying and practicing. She works her ass off. Like she's putting her blood, sweat, and tears into learning her craft. And I think it's just like a nice change of pace compared to other like high fantasy magical school settings. So I think it's just such a fun read, and I definitely recommend it. And I need to get myself to finally read book 2. And they're pretty short books too. Like they're all under 400 pages, so there's no reason as to why I haven't read them yet. I just haven't gotten around to it. So at some point I will, but you also should too. And then perhaps another obvious one, as it's a series that is very well loved, but that is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. I adore this series. I don't think I talk about it like at all on my channel, which is shocking because like this is one of my favorite series ever. It's probably like second after the Wayward Children series, so I don't know why I don't talk about it. So this series follows a group of teenagers. Our main character's name is Blue. She comes from a family of clairvoyants, and ever since she was a child, it was either like a prophecy or some curse or something, but she's been told that she will cause her true love to die. So she is very careful with her heart. She does not want to fall in love ever. But then she meets the Raven Boys. They're this group of 4 students who are very, very different from each other. They really have no business like being friends because they're so different, but they have just formed this really tight-knit group. But these 4 boys are on a quest to find the remains of some king. I forget the whole reason why, to be honest. It's escaping me right now. But Blue ends up joining their group, and she becomes friends with all of them, and it's just this beautiful found family. These 5 are just so wonderful together. I just adore them with my whole heart. I'll leave the synopsis there because I don't want to like go into spoilers if you are one of the few who hasn't read this series. I truly adore these books. They're so much fun. But yeah, highly recommend this series if you have not gotten to it yet. Next up is the Shadow and Bone Trilogy by Leigh Bardugo, another very well loved series, but definitely fitting for the magical school setting. This one is set in I think it's like a Russian inspired world where there is this thing called the Fold that cuts right through the land, and it is this like dark, cloudy thing with monsters inside that will eat you if they can. But it was created hundreds of years ago and nobody knows how to get rid of it, but there's a prophecy that the Sun Summoner will appear one day and basically save them from the Fold. And of course our main character finds out that she is the Sun Summoner, and our story kind of goes from there. So once her powers are revealed, she is taken to the royal court of the Grisha to go and train with them and learn how to wield her magic and be able to save everybody. So she is training alongside all of these Grisha who have been training for years, and she has like literally no training, so she's kind of a hot mess. But yeah, so the school setting I think is really just in the first book, because like shit happens in this series and we get taken very far away from the royal court. But the first book, there is quite a bit of the training going on, which I thought was so much fun. I love that part of this series. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this one for a magical school setting. And then last but not least is my only adult recommendation for this one, and that is Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. This one is about a private investigator who's kind of like down on her luck. She is not getting very much work, and she has a sister who, when they were teenagers, realized that her sister has magic. She's a witch, and for some reason she is not. So her sister went off off to teach at this magical school and left her behind to live out her very normal mundane life, and there has been a lot of bitterness between the two. They don't really talk anymore until one day somebody else from the school shows up and asks her to work a murder case that the police deemed as a suicide, but the people who work there know that it was definitely not a suicide. They need help, and they ask her because she kind of already knows about the magical world. Even if she's not part of it, she still is aware of it, so they asked her to help. So she goes to the school and starts digging around trying to figure out who the murderer is, and it's one of those books where every single character is a plausible suspect. Like, you're reading it and you're kind of going along with her in the investigations, and you can totally see every single person being the culprit. So when the killer is actually revealed, it is such a surprise. If you've seen the show Scream on Netflix, it's kind of a similar vibe, how like when you're going through it and trying to figure out who it is, everybody is suspicious. Literally everyone. So like, even though the killer is obvious, it's really not. It was still such a surprise and it blew me away. I adored this book. So definitely check it out. I would recommend going for the audiobook for this one because the narrator did a phenomenal job at capturing the whole essence of this main character. She has a very like gruff, almost sultry kind of voice, and it was just such a good audiobook. So I 100% recommend taking the audiobook route for this one. And that is it. Those are my top recommendations for a fantasy school setting. I really want to read a more like high fantasy, like magical school setting. So if you have any recommendations for me, please do let me know down in the comments. I would love to read some more. These ones are just some of my personal favorites that I think are a lot of fun. Most of them are pretty light and easygoing and just a whole lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye!